All right, haven't done a whole lot of axe stuff lately because I've been working on knives. Definitely getting that itch. It's time to hang an axe. And go with this Winchester. Rocky. It's awesome. No cracks. A little bit of pull abuse, not too bad though. Great stamp, full bit, pretty full bit. That's nice. Looking through the options. I think I'm gonna stick it on this Purple Heart handle. I started, laminated it with, this is Flaming Box Elder, I believe. Spalted Flaming Box Elder. It's really nice wood. Should come out very nice. Already cut the kerf and everything. We're gonna get this shaped. We're going to hang it. Actually, I'm gonna add some bluing to this head first. Get it looking good, then we'll hang it. So the first step here is to get the head lined up on the axe handle and draw the outline of the eye so you can remove material from the handle to get a nice snug fit. Just a sort of a custom fit there. I like to do this part first because if anything goes wrong in this area, you can scrap the handle without losing too much work. Here I'm looking at the profile of the axe and figuring out where I want that head to rest relative to the shoulder of the axe there, so I know how far down to remove material. The other benefit of doing this part first is you have a square handle to clamp nicely in the vise. So I grab my draw knife. I can immediately tell that I'm not going to do very well with the draw knife on this Purple Heart. It's pretty hard and brittle, and it started to have a little bit of tear out just right off that first pull. So I convert over to the oscillating belt sander. This machine does a nice job, especially with this 40 grit, of taking away material in a pretty precise way. I really like using the draw knife to do this, but only if the wood is amenable to it and if it's, shaving off nice and smooth. But I'm quick to convert to the belt sander if it seems like it's going to be difficult. I've had several handles where tear out was a big issue around the eye, and I just didn't like it. And this is a nice workaround for that. Here I'm focusing the material removal on the transition zone between the tongue of the handle and the shaft of the handle. I think it's important to get that nice and blended so that you don't have any pronounced shelf at the bottom of the axe head on the handle. Not only does that not look good, it creates a structural weak point for the handle itself. So at this point, I have the material removed down to my pencil marks, and now it's time to start test fitting the head and marking where exactly I need to remove more material to get a perfectly custom fit inside the eye of that axe. So it's a lot of putting the head on, getting it down as far as it goes, marking the material, then taking it off, removing material, putting it back on and so forth until you have the axe head as far down on the tongue as you want it to be relative to the shoulder. A properly hung axe will have contact between the handle and the axe head all the way around, but this is easier said than done. It does take practice and time to be able to do this. It's really easy to start getting impatient with this process and end up taking off a little too much material. And it's not the end of the world if that happens, but it's not ideal. Another critical part of hanging an axe is getting the head on the handle with proper alignment in all three axes. If it's not lined up, then material has been taken away asymmetrically, or sometimes even the eye of the axe is a little bit asymmetric, so you have to compensate for that with your material removal on the handle. And it's, again, just a trial and error. You put it on, you see how you're lining up, and then adjust accordingly. To get all these factors right, it takes time and diligence. And that's why I do this part first before spending a lot of energy on the rest of the handle. As I'm examining it here, everything's looking pretty lined up. Just need a little bit more material removal to slide that head down onto the shoulder a little farther. That's a little high up for my taste. It probably could work out just fine, but as far as the appearance that I'm going for, I need it to be a little bit lower. One method I've used in the past to preserve the length of the handle, say the shoulder is sort of low relative to the end of the handle, and like in this case I have quite a bit extra material on top I'm going to cut off. So if I wanted to use that material, I could just leave the head up high on the tongue and bring the shoulder up from the bottom and sort of reestablish that shoulder a little higher, thereby extending the shaft of the handle. I've done that in the past and it worked out pretty well. So now that the axe head is fitted to the handle, it's time to focus the attention on the shaft and the palm swell. You may notice that the palm swell is already shaped. That's because my camera died on me while I was doing it. I had a nice tutorial where I was showing the lines I was using and how I was shaping the contours of that palm swell, which turned out really nice, but it wasn't recording, and I didn't realize until I was all done. So we'll have to save that one for next time. Right here, I'm working on making the shaft octagonal, and I'm blending it with the round tongue and the round palm swell. I think it's nice to have a rounded palm swell, but I do like that octagonal shaft. It's one of my favorite styles of handles to make. I think it just looks really sharp. It feels good in the hands, and it's sort of a vintage aesthetic, and I really like that. I think one of the most important things with making an octagonal handle is keeping the lines clean and nicely blended and flowing. There's definitely a bit of artistry that goes into making axe handles in general, but this adds a little extra contour complexity to it, which I really enjoy. I like to have those lines just sort of blend in with the shoulder and the palm swell, so it's not really a pronounced contour difference at those transition areas. Here I'm looking the handle over for symmetry and alignment of each facet of the octagonal handle, making sure they're blended nice, looking for any detail spots that need to be cleaned up. And overall, this is looking pretty good. So now that the power tools have done their job in quick material removal, it's time to move on to some finish sanding. And I'm starting with 120 grit sandpaper here. I'm just trying to get everything smooth, and my phone dies again. So that's a little abbreviated, but I worked my way up to 220 grit on all the facets of the handle, palm swell, all around. Doing a little extra shaping there. The palm swell wasn't quite as round as I wanted it to. You could still feel some squareness. So I just cleaned that up a little bit. You might notice I'm leaving the end of the handle there at the palm swell unfinished. And that's so I can hang the axe and pound on the end of the handle without damaging a nicely finished surface. So as soon as I get the axe head hung on there and secured with the wedge, I'll go ahead and finish out the end of the palm swell. So the handle's basically done here at this point, and now I'm going to turn my attention to making the head look as good as possible before putting it on the handle. So what I'm doing here is a surface conditioning belt. I'm cleaning off that axe head from any dirt, grime, or anything else, any little burrs or anything. So getting the surface conditioned in preparation for bluing. I'm going to do a little cold bluing here, a couple layers of it, each side, letting it black up, getting all the surfaces here. Just going over each side, I think twice. I do have a couple different kinds of bluing agents, and I end up mixing some just to see if there was a difference or if one was blacker than the other. And there was a little subtle difference, but nothing too much. At the end here, I get it wiped off and use a little oil to sort of stop the bluing process and lock it in. If you don't do something to neutralize that bluing agent, it will continue to oxidize and cause a layer of rust pretty quickly. So here I'm turning my attention to the eye of the axe and filing down little small areas that are rolled into the eye of the axe. This was going to prevent any catching or digging into the wood and preventing a nice snug fit all the way around. Next, it's time to pick out a wedge. I have some wedges there in that box on the bench. I end up selecting a laminated wedge. I think the color variation looks really nice and it's just fitting for this axe, I think. So I have to shape it a little bit, get it down to size, and then round the back just a little bit so it blends with the contour of the eye. And then the front needs to be tapered a bit so you get a nice custom fit without peeling up wood while driving it into place. Here I'm just looking at how deep that wedge is going. I want it to go about 2/3 of the way down through the axe eye. And this should directly correlate with the depth of the kerf cut, with additional length being left on for the handle to sit a little proud, if that's the style you're going for. So this is the actual hang portion of this. We're driving the handle down through the eye of the axe head and using inertia to have that head ride up on the handle. And I stop when the axe head is both snugly fit and I'm happy with where it is relative to the shoulder. Here I'm cutting off a little axe handle material on the top just so I don't have to drive the wedge through it. Now my camera wasn't recording when I was sinking that wedge in, but I use a flatter and I found that works really good to get a nice even drive on that wedge down into the axe head. It's sort of my go-to method now. If you just use a hammer, I found myself often smashing the wedge a little too much and breaking it up. Sometimes it breaks up into the handle itself and you got to cut it off lower than you were anticipating. So that flatter really has sort of changed the game for me. Here I'm just sanding it, doing a little file action on top, just trying to make that wedge look really nice, getting some chamfers on the corners. And there I had put a little micro wedge of walnut in there because I had a bit of a space, a little separation from that laminated wedge. This did the trick. So just getting those chamfers nice, getting everything sort of touched up. I did have a little bit of split on the back, and so I put a little glue in there, clamped it for the night, come back the next day. It's perfect. You can't even tell it's there. All right, now it's time to burn my logo into the handle, claim it as my own. You're getting it nice and hot, and the camera shuts off, so you don't get to see. Sorry. But looks good. Here I'm finishing the palm swell, giving it a nice bulb end. That oscillating belt sander works really nice for this. Just getting it even, symmetric. Those bulb ends are another thing that I've really come to like and enjoy. They feel good in the hand, especially if you're just holding the axe by the palm swell with one hand, just carrying it around. It's nice to feel that bulb end. And I think they look really nice as well. And just touching it up with a little bit of hand sanding. Make it nice and smooth, bring out the grain a bit. Give it a finished look. Just about done here. All right, so the axe is hung, palm swell is done, it's all sanded. Time to put an edge on this beauty. Starting with a 120 grit belt here, trying to reestablish that secondary bevel. It needs a bit of a tune-up down there. The edge was a little bit chipped. Not bad though. Just doing a little reprofiling with that 120. I'll move to 220, then 320 and 400. And I'm using a slack belt to do this, so I get a little bit of an apple seed sort of profile. Helps with durability of that edge. Here's a shot after that 400, looking a little shiny there. Overall looking pretty good. I like it. It's nice and even and symmetrical through the length of the bit. Now I'm taking it to the buffer just to give it a little extra shine there. And as I sort of get that buffer wheel onto the bluing, I kind of like what I see. So I decide to just go ahead and buff the whole head, give it a nice little polish. It's not taking off any of the bluing, just making it look nice and smooth and shiny. All right, so now it's time to admire my work. Got a few glamour shots here. This is just a raw wood shot here. Wanted to capture sort of the before and after. So this is some tung oil that I'm using just by itself, nothing else in there. It's a little more water resistant than linseed oil, according to what I've read. And it has less chemical additives than the boiled linseed oil. So I kind of switched to using this as my first layer. And after this soaks in, I'll hit it with some of my paste wax to finish it off. Gosh, I love that purple heart wood. And that flaming box elder just pops when you put the oil on it. Just getting it wiped up, cleaned up here. Some final shots for you. Winchester Rockaway, purple heart handle, 26-inch octagonal, flaming box elder, palm swell, bulb end. Beautiful. Thanks for watching.